So, what is shoulder surfing and why should I care about it? This is a big thing, and it's basically how can I stop people from stealing my stuff in public? So, in public spaces, we will give away a lot of information, and we will do that often just through letting other people look at our stuff. So, shoulder surfing can happen in a variety of ways, but most typically you do it on purpose. So, hey, come over, look at my screen, take a look at what I'm looking at, look at this video. This is funny. This is the work project that we're doing. And we want people to shoulder surf us to see because we want to show them something. Where it gets fun is that often there's many times where we do not want other people to be looking at our devices or at our information, and yet we're displaying it all over the place. So why is shoulder surfing my problem? Why should I even care about it? Well, in reality, there's a lot of nefarious people out there who are trying to get our information and steal from us, and often we just hand it over to them. So often shoulder surfing is done just out of sheer boredom. So when I'm riding the subway and someone happens to be watching something on their phone, piques my interest and I just watch it. Am I really watching or paying attention? No, I'm just bored on the subway and I'm looking at what's going on. Other times, though, people are intentionally watching in order to capture different things, such as passwords or usernames, or even what devices or apps you're using, so they can then turn that around into an attack of some kind. So when am I most vulnerable to shoulder surfing? Well, we've got three sort of main areas here. One is when I'm in a crowded area. Whenever I'm in a arena, coffee shop, elevator, anything like that, I pull my phone up and I can't put the phone right against my face. I got to have it away from my face, and therefore anyone beside or behind me can totally see what I am looking at. Two, if it's really intentional, they'll use telescopes, security cameras, binoculars, anything like that in order to view what you're doing from a distance. So if I'm in an office building and I have a window and my back is to the window and I have another office building right next to me, anyone that's up on those floors can now use a device to then view what I'm viewing and capture that information. The third one is often used as public Wi-Fi, and it's just eavesdropping. It's intercepting your signal either by putting up a fake signal or else intercepting your traffic. Our traffic then goes through that other device, and anything that we do is then captured and the hacker has access to it. These are kind of three ways in which you can become most vulnerable, and we're going to focus primarily on, how can we avoid the crowd type situation. So the big question is, why should I care? Who cares if someone can see my device? Like, I've got nothing on there that I want to hide. Well, the truth of the matter is that the more that I get to know you, the more that I get to understand you, the better I can anticipate what you're doing, as well as make educated guesses about you. Those educated guesses can then get me into your bank accounts, they can get me into your identity, they can get me into all sorts of other things that I don't actually want to get you in there. And so right now it's just a matter of being lazy and saying, you know what, it's so much easier for me just to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'll deal with the repercussions lately. And if that's you, all the power to you. But if you're interested in actually not having to deal with someone rummage through your bank account, then let's dig into this a little bit deeper. So when am I most vulnerable to shoulder surfing? Well, here are some just basic ideas that we came up with. The one that really jumped out at me is arena seating. So in a theater, at a hockey game, football game, anything where you're actually in an arena and people are sitting behind you, so easy to shoulder surf. Like, so easy. It's unintentional. I sit there every game and everyone during the intermission pulls out their phone and you can easily read anything that's going on. Am I intentionally looking to try and figure out what they're doing? No, but it did get me onto this topic of saying, wow, look at how easy it is for me to actually see all this information about them. I can see contacts, I can see the apps they're using, I can even see what they use for their passcode if they draw it in or type it. And that information is very useful for a hacker. Other areas are like coffee shop, elevators, subways, hotel lobby, food court, public computers, really anywhere where you're out in public in a crowd. you need to be aware of your surroundings and what is happening. One of the things that we don't think of as actually being shoulder surfing is what information we put on our desk there, or in our vehicle, or even on the outside of our house. The information that we put out there tells people a lot about who we are, what we think about, and what's important to us. And things that are important to us tend to crop up and be in our passwords. They tend to be in our security questions and things like that. And if I can figure all of those things out, specifically security questions, then I can get by your passwords. Sticky note on the side of the computer monitor, we've seen that far too many times. Don't do it. Don't stick it under your keyboard. Don't stick it on the back of your monitor. I'll find that in about 3 seconds, be into your device, have downloaded all your business data in about 10 seconds, and be long gone. So the big question then comes, what information are people actually stealing from me? Well, here's some examples. This isn't an exhaustive list. Really, they could steal anything. If they'd love to, they would just download your entire phone, and many of them do. But usernames, passwords, PIN numbers, two-factor authentication codes, or at least understanding how your two-factor authentication works so that I can bypass it. Social security numbers, bank account numbers, confidential data. They're also looking for sort of intelligence gathering. What are your habits? What are your likes? Where do you work? How do you work off your phone or your device? Who's in your contact list? What contracts do you have? Who's in your network that we can then use you to get to them? Because many times the attack is not necessarily about you. It's about using you as a stepping stone to get to someone else. What are the applications that you use? Do you use Teams or do you use Zoom or do you use both? If I know that information, then I can turn that information against you. And so, if possible, why would we bother sharing that with someone? We might as well just keep that to ourselves. The other element with this is that the attack may not be at that moment. It's not like I will just get your password and necessarily attack that day. It may be a future attack that's happening later on in the month or even years later. And if you're like 90% of the population, you use the same password for multiple places. So if I get your password for one thing, I can then figure out, okay, what other sites are you in? What's your email? And can I then use that to get into those other sites? So what can I do to protect myself? Well, the first thing you can do is hit that like button on this video. I know that's not really a way to protect yourself, but it is a way for other people to get shown this video and shown the importance of it. And if you believe in keeping yourself secure and wanting your neighbor to be secure as well, hitting that like button is a great way to do it. Okay, but seriously now, how do I protect myself from this? Well, here are some ways that you can protect yourself from shoulder surfing. This is not an exhaustive list at all. I'm sure that you have many other ideas, and I love to hear them. Here at Learn Online Security, we are exploring, we are trying to understand more and more. And so join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts on shoulder surfing and what you have learned over the years. Okay, so no public location for banking. That means don't do banking when you're standing in public locations. When I'm on the subway, I'm not checking my bank account and logging in so that someone can see how I do it. Do I use face authentication to get into my bank account? Oh, I do. Okay, I can get by that. Password manager. If you have to type in a password, someone can watch you type in, and there's people who are very well trained in understanding and seeing what your password is just by you going about and doing your thing. And so now I have that information in my brain and I can go home and enter it in on my own device. Password manager allows that password to just be entered and there's no actual entering in, so there's nothing to follow. Don't read out loud. So there's times when you're asked to give your credit card over the phone and you have to read the credit card. Do that in a private location. Don't do it in the Starbucks coffee. Don't work on sensitive data in public locations. This should just be an office norm, but sometimes we forget and suddenly we're working on employee files with our social security numbers and all those things. All of that information is then, available to whoever's looking at you at that particular time, even in boredom. Getting in the habit of covering your PIN number with your hand. Use two-factor authentication. Although we can get by most two-factor authentication, they can be easily bypassed. The thing here is that we want to make sure that we're adding that extra stumbling block. So a person does have to have that extra knowledge to get by. Use a screen protector. Well, we'll include some links below for some recommended screen protectors. We haven't reviewed them, but these are the type of screen protectors that we're talking about. This requires someone to be looking straight on the screen. They can't look from the side and actually see what you're looking at unless they're looking directly behind you. And this helps eliminate a little bit of the shoulder surfing that happens from the peripheral vision. Lock your device. You step away from your computer for a bit. Make sure your computer lock is on. It's quick and easy to do. On most computers now, it's just a button, hit the button, and walk away. But make sure you lock your device. If you are in a public location and you do have to do work or you do have to do something more sensitive and it has to be done now, make sure your back is against the wall. And the final thing that we're going to recommend in this video is pay attention to what's behind you. There's many times where I'll see someone sitting in a coffee shop, their back is against the wall, but the wall is the windows that go into the front of the shop. And everyone passing by on the street is able to sit there, do their makeup, and watch everything you're doing on your computer or your phone. And the same thing with security cameras. Pay attention to where security cameras are in a building because they can also be used against you.